Thank you.
You can't walk. And our owl hasn't got it. Be green.
I don't know.
Okay, Ryan, it's on mine. It says it's waiting for the host to let us in. I don't care if I'm in, but Gene, I think if you go to the calendar and then find that invite. Okay, see, I'm on now. And we have Kevin, Michelle Cruz, and shows Trish Slater, Suzanne's iPad. And Morgan. Okay,
You have to turn off your volume.
Okay, I'm muted.
I see you now, picture. It's like doing this on mine.
I'm sorry?
I said the owl is, it's doing this on mine. The owl is working.
It's working.
Message from Lindsay, Gene, we're having major audio issues. Everyone may need to mute until they are speaking.
Why don't you let me in?
The host has another meeting in progress. Is it okay if I try this?
Sure.
Yeah. Did you do this from the calendar?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
You're muted. Sorry, the speakers are muted. We want to, we can use.
Yeah, it's just
My speakers are muted and my mic's muted. And we don't need to see ourselves on this because it's covered there. All right, we're getting started a little late because of technical difficulties. prayer and the pledge. I guess it's my turn on both today, so. Our Heavenly Father, creator of the universe, we come before you today as the Board of County Commissioners for Rio Grande County. We'd ask that we would get through our meeting with diligence and wisdom, that we would focus on the issues before us. We pray that your guidance be here, that there be peace in the room, and that we would make good choices and good decisions today. In Christ's name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Noster,
Present.
Commissioner Bockel. Present. Commissioner Glover.
Here. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to the agenda as presented?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Gene, do you have anything?
No,
I'll have some things under the Commissioner's update. Under general business and administrative items, we have a request from the land use administrator to take some time off. And since she's, as I understand from her email, she's notified HR, but she doesn't have an administrator right now to run that through, so it'll come to the board.
I do have something I want to add. It was supposed to be on here. I don't see it on here. Is the Conservation Trust Fund issue that we talked about for Sky High. Can we put that under unfinished business, maybe?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Unfinished business. Okay. So I'll take a motion to accept it with the corrections. Second, first and second. And all in favor? Aye. All right. Okay. Public comment. I don't know. We got public commenting on Zoom. You guys all look like, well, you're public. Are there any comments from the public at this time?
I guess I would probably have to have people type in the chat if they need to comment, because everyone else is muted to cut down on the feedback.
Okay, so hopefully they can hear us. If somebody has a comment, if they would just do a chat on the Zoom so it'll show on their screen.
It looks like the chat works.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, hearing no comments, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda: the accounts payable, payroll, and veterans report. We're presented today with the county payroll for approval. Are there any other questions on the consent agenda?
I don't have any.
I'm good.
I'd move that we approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Okay. Moving on. Report from social services.
Are you guys okay if I just do it from here
Yes.
to help with the social distancing we got going on? So just so you guys know, yesterday, or I guess it was on Monday, Walsmith and Bateman did their presentation in the work session to you guys. My understanding is you guys will be adopting the audit formally. As you know, there was no findings in our department, so I was extremely happy with everything that got tested. I do need for employment first. Last month when I met with you guys, I let you guys know that the state is changing the ABOD requirements, which means the state of Colorado no longer will be telling the federal government that we will do the ABOD pledge, which that means counties are no longer obligated to run the employment first program. I really am sad to see this program go away. I think it was a really good deal when it was a mandatory program, but it's no longer mandatory. We can do it even if we wanted to. And with the amount of money that it takes to run this program, it's a 50-50 match, not a 20% match. I don't think it's a cost-effective program for the county at this point in time to continue doing. But I would need a formal decision from the board on what you would like us to do with that. Because I have to either tell the state by Friday that we are not doing it or submit a plan of how we are going to do the program.
And your recommendation is because of the lack of money and the change in the percentages, it's not cost effective to do it.
Correct.
So that's makes sense to me.
And I would say that it's appropriate to accept your recommendation, and I would move that we follow your recommendation.
Do we have a motion to accept Director of Social Services recommendation that we discontinue our participation in the Employment First program? Is that accurate? Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the City of Monte Vista Connection contract. It is the same as we've done every other year. There's no increase in it. It is with TANF funding, so it doesn't come out of county general fund. It comes out of our TANF block grant. They will be doing things differently due to the social distancing requirements, but I have run that past the state and they seem fine with what they're proposing to do. So I would just need a formal motion from the board to approve the contract.
And that's your recommendation that we
It
approve it?
is,
Like
and I
make-
had sent the contract to you guys.
I'd like to make that motion that we approve
Okay,
Kids
we have a
Connection.
motion
And I'll second.
and a second. Any discussion? I'll call the question and all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so that's approved. Okay, next, Jody.
That one I need your signature on. The next thing I have, again, is a policy I sent to you guys a couple of weeks ago. All this policy is making us compliant with the state rules. We used to have to require a job search log from participants in order to make them eligible for the CCAP funding. The state is no longer requiring that, so I just took the language out of the policy stating that we would require that. So I sent you the old policy and the new policy.
And I would here again approve or move that we follow your recommendation.
Have a motion. Do we have a second? You have a second? Any discussion? If not, I'll call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
So the next item I had, you guys saw as well too, I was nominated to be the other agency representative for the Healthcare Coalition grant that's going on. Just want to make sure the board formally knew that I was participating in those. I've only been on 2 of the calls lately. So just so you guys are aware, I am participating in that.
No action required on our part.
No, unless you guys do not want me to participate in that. That would be my only thing from you guys. So as long as you guys are okay with it, I will continue to do so.
Any comments, questions on that?
I don't have a problem with
No,
it.
that's great.
I think you're a good addition.
So concurrence of the board on that one, just informal, but yes.
Um,
What else?
just so you guys know, on July 1st, we no longer under federal waivers from the federal government, which means that we are required if a person wants a face-to-face interview done for food assistance. We are trying really hard to mitigate the amount of people in our building, so we're trying to do phone interviews. It seems to be going well, but that requirement allowing us not to do them is no longer there. So we are allowing more people into the building if they choose. That's how they would like services.
So on the food assistance, you don't have the waiver from the feds now for not in-person meetings. Now you're gonna have in-person meetings. Therefore, they'll have to manage the number of people in your building.
Right, and because of the governor's order, they must wear face masks in the building, so we are doing that.
And that's an information
Just
item also.
information.
And Jody, I just got a comment that the people on Zoom can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
So I'm
Maybe,
sorry.
no, that's fine. I will move closer. Maybe that would be easier for them. The other thing, and this is just information too, and you guys probably have experienced this, but with COVID right now, it is extremely hard to get any services. I had brought in front of the board, we got approved to get a new phone system because our phone system basically doesn't work in our building. We are finally Saturday morning getting our phone system. It took us 7 months to get all the parts.
This coming Saturday.
Yeah, I will be coming in on Saturday and working with WSB to get the phone system installed. So they did testing yesterday for it, but it has been extremely hard. In addition to it, the roofer who's trying to fix my water problems I've got going on over there, he can't get supplies. He's actually driving to Pueblo himself to try and get supplies for us. We tried to update child welfare's iPads. It took us 2 months to get them and to get them updated. So just so you guys are aware, it's extremely challenging right now going on getting some services, and everybody's thing is COVID. So yeah, but we're working through it. It's getting better. Just so you guys know, healthcare policy and financing, they had an audit from the state auditor's office. They had a lot of error rates. We've asked for breakdowns on counties. They have not provided that to us, so I can't tell you where we are in that mix. But I do know with that coming will probably be more regulations and more watching us and more probably audits.
This
So
is statewide thing.
it is a statewide thing. So just so you know, that is happening. The state is also predicting a surge for us coming this fall. They anticipate
COVID surge.
supposedly, and that would mean applications. I did have Rochelle pull a report for me to let me know exactly how many increase of applications we had. From March until June, we had 234 additional applications. So I was surprised. I didn't realize we had that many increase in our building in that time frame. So staff was able to handle and absorb it pretty well. I'm pretty pleased with that. And then just so you guys know, I got notice this week of a non-certified kinship audit. Well, it's not really an audit, it's a review. And that will be coming, and it starts on August 18th. And then also notice that an adult financial and a Colorado Works review will be occurring before September. So finished one audit, I got 2 more coming at me. So we'll see what that is, and I'll let you guys know what they say. Sure. But other than that, I don't have anything else unless you guys do as a board.
You have any questions?
I do.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you.
Next up, Sheriff's Department.
Jody, let me know what Justin finds out about that. The leak and stuff.
Nothing like a downpour.
Thank you.
Had to bring him along for the last day.
This is today your
wanna
officially last day.
Make things easier.
And upwards.
A lot of this is update from what we talked before. Some things that we found out, some cost-wise, particularly on the body worn cameras, because under Senate Bill 217, with the mandate coming down, it's an unfunded mandate. So we've been out there with a lot of companies trying to figure out where we can get, the best deal for the money. And we've come up with one really good one that has surprised us and gives us everything that we need. And we're looking at probably a third of the cost from what we initially looked at. We've had them quotes come in as high as $350,000 over a 5-year period. Down to this last company is approximately 125 to 130,000 over a 5-year indefinite period. We don't have to sign a contract, which makes it nice. The equipment actually comes from Verizon, and it's the phone system that they have that law enforcement is using. So we're looking at that one because of the security on it. It does meet our CJIS requirements. So none of the other companies that come forward to say that, but this company does. And what makes it nice, the personnel is local over in Monument, north of Colorado Springs. So we do have somebody local. So we've dealt with that, still looking at it when we can get it. The equipment for that, like I said, is free.
Not the cameras.
What it is, it's a cell phone.
Oh,
And they've taken advantage of the cell phones and using everything that the cell phone can offer, GPS, recordings, and everything off the cell phone. Verizon said they will give us the phone to do that because they work with this company. It makes it nice. The best thing about it is we break cell phone, we call them, we get a new one, free.
So would they have to carry 2 cell phones, or would they be able to use that cell
No,
phone?
that cell phone would be used as a work phone also.
That's awesome.
Okay. So, we've been digging the last couple of weeks and trying to get stuff taken care of on that. So it's really being able to save a little bit of money on that side. And security wise, it's really made a big difference on security, being CJIS qualified. So that means it's high security. And we don't have to pay for the constant storage. We can set our retention schedule per the recording. And so it's really good. We're getting some more information on it, particularly the equipment. It makes it nice. So, all the guys that have seen this so far have really liked it. They said it's great. And we do know 4th Judicial District accepts the data as far as the video recordings, which is a big plus right there, because we know that it's being accepted in Colorado with no questions. So that was one. But coming along the same lines, we have to come up with a preservation system for our jail video and audio. We have to preserve that now too. It's just not the 30 and 60 or 90 days. We have to look at times upwards to 10 years or more, depending on the incident. So we've gotten an idea from WSB on what it would run for video audio servers. And it's somewhere running between 20 to 25,000 just for the servers. Okay. So we're trying to get that lined up to see what we could use and what equipment would be out there. We're looking for some high end, something that's going to be worthwhile.
Now,
So
what are the time requirements from the state?
Okay, state says we have to have it online by January 1st, 2023.
We've got a couple of
Okay.
years.
That also falls in line with mandatory reporting, but that mandatory reporting stipulated that we must collect all data now. So it's sort of a catch-all. So that's what I'm working on, data collection using our present records management system to tie it in. Well, I've already saved money there because I've taken the reporting requirement, what elements are needed into it for state, and I've already created the report that can be generated out of RMS, saving anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 right there.
So are you saying you have to collect it all now, but you don't have to
We
save
now
it all
have to
now?
send it right now. It doesn't make any sense because initially all of the reporting was supposed to be January 1st, 2021, including the position where you had to have body worn cameras. But they pushed that out, but kept everything else in place. So we're waiting for that date to happen when all agencies, over 270 agencies, try to download in the state. So it's one of those ones where we don't know what's going to happen.
No wonder you're leaving.
And to make it even better, they could get together and all down, okay, at 2:00, we're all going to down.
On the countdown, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've thought about that, and even Department of Justice and the AG's office doesn't know what to do with the data once they get it. We've appointed 3 out of the sheriff's office to work with state in determining what they're going to do with this. Okay, so
that's a work in progress thing.
Oh, it is.
We're a mess in progress.
Constantly. So it's so that's on the cameras and video and audio, and right now to cover the video side, we've given everyone, they got audio recorders. So they go on a call, they start their audio recorder. And so we're saving that also. So that's audio recordings that we have to have because of the statute reads that if you make and put a statement in a report, either it will also be substantiated with a black body worn camera or audio or other recording device. If not, if it can't be substantiated, it could be thrown out.
When they do a report, they go out on call, do a report, and they're doing the audio. So we're getting all of that, but they're observing other things at that point. How do they account for that? It may not be on the audio.
Just they have to be able to articulate that in the report.
Okay, I observed a skunk under the bush.
And it's really, this is something that we've started from the beginning, from last year. Be able to put in a report and articulate what you see, and you have to tell a story. The body worn cameras, the video, the audio just backs up what you're seeing. Yeah. And so, and a couple of guys have realized it is a good tool. okay? And be honest with you, you don't know when one of the deputies may be around that has his recording going and recording everything. They've even taken and at times used their work phone for the video and video data. Okay.
It may, in the end, that aspect of it may be better for law enforcement.
We're going back to 6, 7, 8 years ago when the body worn cameras were first being pushed. And then all of a sudden they realized, wait a minute, everyone is using their cameras and they're getting it on video. And all of a sudden situations totally change, from what it is. So it is a deterrent, but it doesn't always show what you want it to show. Yeah, it could be the false front.
I understand.
So you have to be able to articulate it. And actually everything starts, it's just not with the deputies out there, because when they get a call, they have to start their recording as soon as they get a call. But the first recording has to be with the dispatcher. That is the first recording because they're reporting the call, and that has to be covered. So we have to have somebody go through and pull that information off. And this falls back in to the last go around. I said, a records management specialist, their job is going to be full time because they have to maintain all these records.
Every single call.
Yeah. Every single call has to be maintained and it's recorded. And then that has to be down and associated with the dispatch that goes. So see, it starts with a dispatcher is where it all starts with. And that's what we're trying to work
So
at now.
is each call assigned like a number,
Yes,
an identifier? Has it always been?
they've always been. Okay, always been.
But now you gotta go through and pair them up and match them to.
We have to pair everything up now, match everything down through. And see, that also goes with the courts, because everything has to be filed with the courts if there's any charges made. So it goes through the DA's office in the court. So part of all these recordings are also submitted. So, everyone gets a piece of the pie on this. And there's a lot. They keep putting more on, which one of the things I put on there real time that was coming up to talk about, that just came down last week from state, from CBI, that along with all this data we're collecting, they want to be able to report it now to state in a almost real-time basis. So that's where UCR NIBRS, which is your information sent into FBI on criminal stats, they want it near real time now being reported. So as stuff is happening during the day or they catch up in the morning with it, it's not this 3 months or 6 months. They want to try to cut it down to 1 month minimum time, to get all these stats reported and be able to report it to the public in near real time. So,
So is that just reporting numbers at that point?
that's
You send
reporting.
them out
When they say data, it's data actually. How many thefts did we have? And it goes right down.
kind of like that report you gave us.
Right. Yeah. So, that's, we're dealing with that now too, because that's another avenue of all this data collection from the cameras, dispatch, the deputies, and all the reports has got to be fed now into state and the federal government. So now we got one more title to throw on whoever my specialist is going to be in collecting the data.
You're talking about having a position specifically for all this data.
That's, yeah,
stuff
you
you're
have to.
recording.
and that's all their job is.
That'll be their sitting in the jailhouse.
They're
wherever-
an RMS, records management specialist, and they will only be handling the records, from body worn cameras, redactions, working with the courts and lawyers and everything. So
It's going to be a full-time, position there, gathering all that data to send off.
Sure. So you have, before we even get to the radios,
well, that's good news I got on that.
oh, good. But you have a list of things that are mandated. And some of this stuff, while we may have until 2023 for presentation. Effectively, a lot of this stuff is taking place, are gonna have to take place right now, or near term. This year's budget, next year's budget, how does that?
My numbers are changing on that. The past week, with some good information that we're actually the first rendition a couple weeks ago, we brought those numbers down. Things that we found out, we started, scratching and scrounging around. So we found some stuff like into the radios. We're going to be saving some money there because of what we're able to get. But I'm trying, the budget is always going up and down. And now that we got some solid numbers, I think we can work with. I already have my guys lined up starting next week. Actually, we're sitting down and starting to plug these numbers in and see what's going to do for the budget. So we're already looking at that and plugging numbers. I can't wait to the last moment on that. So we've been going all along. We've got places where we plug it in, how we're going to account for stuff. So, we're trying to be ahead of the game on that.
So I might have missed the answer. Is that out of this year's budget or next year's?
This is for coming up for next year. Okay. Because you got to do that because of projection. For example, now under the body worn cameras, the company that we're looking at, first year, it's a 31,000. Okay. But it's an indefinite contract. It's not set in 5-year like all these other companies are. It's just, okay, we sign up, we go. And then after that, each year after that, it's going to run about 25,000 for all, the storage and everything they provide us, which is better than the next cheapest one is 67,000 a year.
Is there a distinction in the security on that, or who has access to it? And I don't mean like somebody is not appropriate, but is Verizon more open source to other agencies and stuff, or is it pretty contained?
This particular company, Verizon, works with the visual company that has this, and they use an Android-based system. Okay, and they found Verizon's Android setup, the way they run, and their phone system is a lot better. We can go in, for example, even though you go into an area and they have no service, just no service on cell, the system or the phone will save anything until you hit that area, and it automatically puts it into the secure cloud on that, in the CGIS cloud. Okay, the deputies do not even handle that video; it's automatic, so they can't even see it on here. They can't even pull it up to see it because it's secure, and then it's put in the system.
I wouldn't be using my personal phone.
But see, on the flip side, we can get deactivated phones that are not live phones for usage and use those in the jail on our Wi-Fi. And so all we pay then is for the software. We don't have to do anything else. We don't have to pay for any activations on the phone, only on the patrol side where they're going to use the phone out in the field. In the jail,
They're just a camera, basically. The storage
you're
system.
using the camera system.
And so in that case, would they be body worn by the
Yes, they will
deputies?
be.
Or is there a potential that you could hang them up on the wall and? No.
No, they have to be with the deputy because the deputy has to sign for it. Okay, because then that is attached to them by name. Okay, so, yeah, but that was good there because the first go around we were looking at cameras we had to get for everybody. Now, as a company said, "Oh no, you have deactivated cameras, phone systems you can use." I went, "Oh great, yeah, that saved us a bunch right there." So we're trying to pull some different angles and get some different equipment in there to see how it's working. Right now, this sounds like the best because if it's broken, hey, just call Verizon. I need another phone. And it comes.
So you guys, obviously you're going to come back and say in the budget or whatever, is there anything that has to happen in this budget cycle relative to these items?
Not really, not for the cameras.
The cameras and the reporting and all that.
Yeah, we're building it up. Okay, like I said, we're getting ready because the report now, information coming in, we always had to have use of force for reporting. And contacts now, we have to do contacts. So the data is being there, we just haven't gotten it tied in because we don't have the bodies to tie them in.
Well, at some point, you're gonna need to hire this data specialist,
Right.
data specialist. And I assume that we don't wait until the last minute to do a
I
hire.
don't want to do that.
Wouldn't be wise.
So we need to get them in fairly early, even now as you're starting to having to provide more, like you say, beyond use of force stuff, contact.
Yeah.
Tracing. Yes.
And the deputies are trying to do that now. They are inputting the data, but we have to be able to pull that data out now and put it in a
Put it
useful
into the
form,
other system.
which I created the report. I went into our records management, created the report. I can do that and actually saved us, like I said, $3,000 to $5,000 just by doing that. So it's nice now. I can pull it right up and we have it. So, but it's tying everything together.
So the timing in terms of the hiring of that person and whatever stuff has to happen in that process right now, or let's say between now and the end of the year. Before,
Yeah.
do you have a sense of where you are with that?
Yeah, and I haven't really put anything in black and white, what I need to do with that person. I know they need to put data together for the reporting, but we have to put a job description together on it. And it's going to be quite extensive because they're going to be dealing with a lot. So it's one of these, we put them into, the closet and say, okay, here you are. Get stuff done and report it. And so it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of this unfunded mandates and a lot of requirements coming down. A lot of it is knee jerk. And so luckily we've got a system and everyone's working together with it, which makes it a lot easier. So, and it's just not us. We're working with the DA's office and the courts on the same thing. Everyone is involved. So that's on the cameras. I don't know if you have any other questions on that. One, and you may see this coming through. I'll let you have copies of this. I'm going to show you. This is a telecart. Now, I haven't brought anything up. The state has already paid us for this. It's a one in, one out type thing for the cost. This is a $23,000 piece of equipment that we will be getting, that we will be the only ones in the valley with this. State's paying for it. You see on the back, the invoice is $23,054. We already got that money. The state sent us the check. I give it to, last week I give it to Trish. And so what we need to do is a one in and one out. No money on our part. It's just time. But
So
they
the money's
want,
already in, and now we're going to end up.
yeah,
writing
we're
the
going to write
check on
the
that
check
invoice,
for the company. But this piece of equipment, as my nurse said, will put us into Star Wars, whatever that meant. Okay, they can take an inmate, set them in front of it, and hook them up to it, get blood pressure, all kind of stuff, and it's video teleconference with the hospital. Ties right in with the hospital, and the doctor could see the patient right there and do all the diagnosis, do whatever he needs to do. If he needs blood, Sarah can draw the blood or whatever. Okay, they don't have to leave the jail.
That solves all sorts of issues.
Yes.
So right now we're the only one to be getting this, and I'm thinking, well, this is going to be nice, and you can see what it can do as far as the hardware. How it checks oximeters, blood pressure, and stuff like that. So I wanted to let you know that that'll be coming up. That we'll be requesting those funds be check cut, so we can get the equipment in and get it all set up and running.
Which we've already been paid for.
Yeah. You
Do
know,
we need to approve that now? And then, of course, we're obviously in a bit of a transition, like, where's the invoice kind of thing?
right here.
Well, I mean, we've got that one. I don't know,
Yeah.
Trish's copy or whatever it is she had.
Yeah.
What next? We want, obviously, to me, it makes perfect sense. So, I mean, even getting the nurse was a big step. And then this expands her capabilities.
It does, because right now, we're doing mental health.
Mhm.
She's got, we got an email down. I guess some other agencies have not met their obligations for mental health and met appointments. And we've got 0 missed. She is on top of it. So for the past year, we have had 0 missed on our mental health appointments video side. So, that's good. This now, we get another piece of excellent equipment. I'm looking forward to this because, it's one of these ones where, for a sheriff can gloat, say, hey, I got something you don't.
Okay, is this something that would be able to be used as mental health, or you still have to use your old system as mental health, or is this kind of capable for both of those? or It's just who it's hooked up to, or?
It can be because it's video conference. Okay. So it can be set up and used just about anything. We're looking at it as separating medical and the court process because courts have the old video conferencing systems. So we're going to work at separating those out into separate areas down in jail, try to make space as much as possible. This will be located with the nurse.
Okay, so does it go to a specific, like a hospital in Denver where you would be using those physicians, or is it where it would be?
Whoever has the ability to tie in with this, which right now RGH does. I've been
Okay,
told they
I
have.
didn't know if that was maybe something that came with the contract with this company, is that it has to go through a specific medical facility or whatever, so.
No, yeah, and Sarah told me that it does tie in with their equipment at RGH, which is nice. That normal time, just take somebody there, DEFCO, is $1,200. Okay, that's small. By not transporting them and that giving that safety and security and keeping them here, now we got something we can do that with.
And the billing from the hospital, would that be less since it required less
Should be less.
stuff?
Yep.
Cool,
I think we've done pretty good. We've saved a lot of money
that's nice.
with having Sarah there and everything that we're doing in-house. Yeah. So anyway, I want to let you know on that. Like I said, the the check's been here. It's already been dropped into the treasurer.
Time frame for this, has the order been placed or we?
It's already placed.
It's on its way.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would be appropriate that we take action to say that whenever that we approve the purchase.
I would assume that would
And I
probably be the best.
I would make
direction.
that motion.
Second,
So you got the motion, we got the second to approve the purchase that's already been made.
that was we kept Trish up on that. Sure. One of the last here is this, and I think Ryan, you looked at this, the contract, the JBBS contract. I do not like it. I'm going to be right up front and honest. I do not like it because their reimbursement. Yeah, we got money. Their reimbursement is after we spend the money, and I don't like that. Okay.
Now
This is for behavioral health and part of the drug interdiction that we have involves inmates that come on board with it have drug problems. They get a shot of Vivitrol, the medication they use. Vivitrol is a little over $1,300 a shot. Okay, and there's a program that has to go with it. With a program, you have to track the individual once they're released out of the jail, either on probation or part of their agreement, right? But getting into it, we've also decided and seen that it's going to be upfront money from us. I don't like that, okay? Because we have to then bill the state. And I just feel uncomfortable with it. I'm not even going to go forward with this right now. I know Ryan looked it all over, but no. So if you saw anything on it, it's not going to go anywhere on it all. Okay, made it easy.
There you go.
Okay, last one, radios. Move along here. We were able to get, and we go more through Spectracom. Our initial radio outlay was somewhere close to 120,000. That, you know, and that's where we're looking at because we were told our radio systems is old and it doesn't meet the requirements. But through Spectracom and Digicom can't do it. And they won't even work the refurbished side. We found that we can get refurbished mobile and HTs through Spectracom. These are radios that have went through system once, failed at the end, so they sent them back through and redid the radios again, and then rechecked, so that it's a double standard they've gone through. Ones we've had in the past, we have never had problems with. They've worked great. In fact, better than some of our new ones. But cost-wise, instead of was it $4,400 for a mobile, I can get a refurbished mobile with everything for almost $1,200.
$3,000 savings or better.
Yeah. Handhelds, which were also about $4,400, I can get them for $1,075. Okay, which is a big difference. Big difference. We're looking at roughly minimum best price about $28,000 to outfit 15 new radios and 10 portable radios. We'll get final on that, but that's what the quick quote we got yesterday. They threw together, which is a lot better than 118 to 120,000 for the same amount.
Do we provide any kind of radio for the emergency manager?
Yes.
He is radio.
Yeah.
Like one of these?
One of
Yeah,
our
he-
handhelds.
So his, I think his, we need to check, may be able to upgrade. See, there's some right there on a fine line. Some can't go with 700, other ones can. I wish they would have told us last year that they were updating all the towers on this to add the 700 to it. And right now, the agencies that have gone with the mixed 700, 800 radios, we're only catching half their conversations. You know, State Patrol, we're only getting part of their conversations.
One side?
We're maybe even one burst, one piece of information. Yesterday morning, I heard a dispatch by State Patrol, and all I heard the other agency say, I'm en route. There was a dispatch, we didn't hear it. We didn't know what's going on.
Are they on different bands, like 800 for one? And
No, the
700
700, 800, what it is, 800 is getting congested.
Right.
Okay, statewide. And so what they've done is the FCC has granted the use of the 700 meg system. Okay, 900 megs is for cell phones, but now they granted 700. And the way it does, it scans for an open channel. Okay, they find that open channel, and that's where it sets on. It could be in the 700 meg band, which ours only cover 800. So we're not going to
miss that.
So is
Yeah.
that what these are, is the 700/800?
Yeah. Yeah, the
And the
new
emergency managers may not be.
may not be.
He's
I'm
on
not-
the 800 right now.
Yeah,
As far as you know.
he's already said that he's missed conversation with other emergency managers that have been on the air. He's missed some of the conversation. So, you know, I don't know why they waited to the last minute on this. We could have been working at it. But by going with the refurbished radios, I could save a lot of money on that.
What kind of time,
Excuse me.
what kind of time to get them in and everything? Like-
That,
Don't know.
yeah, I'm
Somebody
not
have to wait a
sure.
long time.
I think state's pushing us, and I get it from Digicom because we got the emails in saying that we need to start upgrading. I don't know if they're pushing to the end of the year or into next year. So,
Generally, by the time we order, within a month and a half to 2 months, they've got them in, got them programmed and ready for
Ready to
us.
go.
yes,
So potentially you could have them by the end of the year if that was what ended up being.
we could.
the necessary.
We could. I could say, okay, we need this many radios. And that would include, once we get them reprogrammed, would include the 7 channels that I can't incorporate right now until we get them. Because we've got school channels and we've got other fire channels that we need to add, and the school emergency channel. I can't add those on the present radios, present system.
And is that, do we have that set aside in this year's budget?
This come up last month is when they sent it to me. Okay. Good thing is, I was told our base radios that we have, our dispatch radios, are reprogrammable. So that's another 35,000 that doesn't have to be put on it. So they can reprogram those. But I can't reprogram those until I can get everything ready to go and do it at one time. Okay. And that's where the issue, timing is really important on that. Yeah, I can have them, but I can't put them into work, to use until everything is ready to go. So, and we're working on that, trying to time that down. But we was able to lower the costs by doing the refurbished side. So, and again, that's where we're trying to plug. We're looking at the budget. We're seeing what we could do. Maybe if there's a chance in the budget, we can go ahead and get a couple of them this time, have them ready and just setting to implement, and then look, in next year to see what we can get first of the year and get everything on board. So it's key. Timing, sometimes it's a week you have something you got to get done.
So you obviously thought through this. Come to us with a request on what you'd like to do vis-a-vis the radios.
When we get things going here next month, I think is when we'll be able to move forward, and I'm going to show you the requests that we can do maybe this year, finish this year out, and then into the first of next year. So, when we start working it down, hopefully next month, I'll have it down to the nitty gritty. And so you can actually see where we're at.
Come in and where we are.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly where we are on the budget. I haven't seen where we are year to date this month. But somewhere in there, if we have to do supplementals or whatever to accommodate certain things. Obviously, if we have the numbers.
We'll take a look. Yeah. And I think the important thing is to make sure the timelines are going to match what we have and what the state wants.
Sure.
And that's what's going to be important there. The state says, well, no, you have to have it done by the end of the year. Here we go, another unfunded mandate.
Lands on the desk.
Josh, that would be a shock, wouldn't it?
Well, and like the sheriff's saying there, a lot of the times on my radio in my vehicle, I'll turn around and try to key up, and you can't key up to turn around and talk to dispatch because the channels are all full. It just shows that it's busy. It just beeps.
Right.
And that's it. If I got an emergency going on and I can't call in, there's a problem.
Sure. Right, you're on your cell phone.
Yeah, well,
If you can.
if you can,
If you can, and
You're up
see,
Rock Creek.
forget it.
the thing, just law enforcement, looking across just the valley, you got 22 agencies trying to use these radios. And you're limited on the number of channels that can be.
How do they do that in large municipalities, areas where there's heavy population, huge law enforcement departments?
From my experience on the Front Range, it was hard.
Mhm.
It was hard.
Just talking over each other, or just blocking it out. It's not available.
Yeah, I know from El Paso when I was up there for the 14 years, and And when I was at Kit Carson and all,
Mhm.
we were turning around and trying to get ours all set up because we were emergency for 3 counties.
Mhm.
And getting everything, I mean, if we went by landline, by phone lines to Denver, we had to wait like 6 years in order to get in because there's no space. We had to end up going with a microwave system, which we could connect automatically.
Mhm.
And just out there in Kit Carson, you know, we lose radio communications a lot of the times because when we're on the landline, because we kept getting kicked off,
Mhm.
where the microwave took it in. So that's how many is out there. It's so jam-packed. Whenever we would go into like Denver, Colorado Springs or stuff like that, they would tell us, shut your radio off. Because
Lower
it's,
level system.
well, it was taken away from their locals. They couldn't get
They're
in.
live, just like a cell phone. It's live into that site.
Mhm.
And so they can see at the site
Mhm.
who's up.
all on it.
So you're taking up that bit of space.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things what I've done here just recently is even in the jail, by policy, each deputy jailer that works in there has got to have a radio. You know, it's, if they're in a cell area, something happens, they got to be able to communicate with dispatch. So we do have, under the sheriff's department, a VHF channel and repeater that we can use. Particularly the simplex side works great. And I got 10 radios for $200 for the jail side, and it's just for jail. And so they don't have to take up that space of 800 anymore.
In-house.
They have their own channel. So
Now, it won't work at Monte Vista. You can't get on the radio and call in.
Right.
It just works right there local.
But it accomplishes what you.
But it accomplishes what we need.
so they're up and running today. So that's what
Any
I-
other questions? What, 20-some thousand dollars, you gotta pay that. When it comes, wherever the invoice is, that's sorted out. You'll be receiving this fairly soon, I assume.
Yeah, we were given a 60, 90-day window or sooner. And as soon as that comes in, you know, it's one of these things that, you know, you want to show off. You know.
Of course.
So
We get,
you got that coming up too.
yeah. When we're buying the camera system, whatever we're doing, contracting with Verizon or whatever. The bidding process on that, we're gonna have to go to bid on that, Ryan?
I've got 4 already.
Okay, and so you got them spec'd out so you can say, this doesn't work, or it does work, but it costs twice as much or whatever.
We have.
Okay, so we're all set on that. We don't have to go through that goat rope when the time comes.
Yeah, I've got, actually, we got a couple more companies come in, but we got 4 that have bid us. And like I said, the best one, and I look at, you know, for the money and what we get is that visual company with the cell phones. I mean, that, when he says, well, no, you use cell phones, you don't use regular cameras. Okay, tell us how. And they showed us. And then they said, you know, use Android-based system and explain how it uses it. And I said, that is more secure than the other cameras. Because the other cameras, you could get into the video too easy.
Right, on the
ones-
camera itself.
Yeah.
And these ones with the system, you can't. You can't even see it there. You have to upload it. You have to, and it goes up. Then you can see it. You can do whatever you want to it then, but the original stays there, never changes. So, and
And that's part of that
key.
217 bill.
Yep.
That none of it's, you know, stopped recording or anything else during,
It's gonna go.
it's gonna
It's
go.
gotta go.
Yeah.
My thing is the bad guy swipes the body camera off, deletes the shooting.
Can't do it.
That, I mean, not on this, they couldn't, but I assume on the other regular body cams, they could at least try.
Yeah, there's too many ways to get into it. But also, one of the,
Could the bad guy steal the phone and
well, yeah, but then we,
then
Then we-
destroy it, or does it automatic, it's already uploaded to?
Yeah.
Unless
already
they-
uploaded.
then what you do is I'll go on the system and say, activate that phone and tell me where it's at,
Where is he?
because it uses GPS.
Yeah.
I
You've
was
got
just thinking,
constant knowledge of where that phone is gonna be.
Unless the phone's destroyed and just totally non-functional, you're gonna be able to track it.
And I can track it to the last point that it was destroyed at.
So you can go right there, find the broken
And
glass.
so, if an officer is in trouble,
Right.
he doesn't answer his radio, we can go in, I would have the
Activate
authority to
that.
go in to activate the phone to see where he's at. To see and actually hear what is happening.
Yeah, you can actually see, even though he's not responding or anything like that, it's still recording.
Yeah.
And you can see what's going on.
Wherever, if it's face down.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
okay, is
yeah.
there something that they have to push, like whenever they start having an interaction? Because I know that's all that you have to record, isn't it? That whenever they're having
When
an
they get the
interaction
call.
with the
Okay,
public,
when they receive a call, they have to activate the camera by state statute.
Okay.
The camera, so
so
if it
it's
takes
not
them
just
30
activated
minutes
all
to
the
get
You
there,
got 30-minute dead air there, huh?
that's right. But it has to be activated. Yeah, and that's why I was saying, if you go to the initial, that's a dispatch. That's the first recording. So that has to be pulled and attached with what you have here. And sometimes that's not easy because you have to go through 17 phone lines to make sure you got the right one. So, and I've seen a couple of them over there sit down all day just to find one recording.
So you're gonna come back to us with a great big bill.
No, it's not that bad.
You set us up. It's gonna cost hundreds of thousands. Oh, look, guys, it's only gonna be 20 or 30,000.
But see, that shows though that we're trying to work at keeping it as low, but yet effective. Yeah, we can get low stuff, but is it effective? This is going to do what the state wants. And, but this does.
Everything that's on here matches what we have to have in place for 217 as it's written right now.
Yeah.
Regardless what they do forward or whatever, but as of right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that 2022?
That's what,
Is that 2022 that has to be implemented, or is it
January 1st, 2023.
2023?
So really, what we got, 2 years, 21 and 22 to get it. But all of our data
Right.
has to be collected and saved to that time. That's when it has to be in and reporting starts.
CBI stuff.
Yeah. So 2.5 years of data hitting them at one time. Yeah. I don't know how they're going to do it.
Do you have anything else for us?
That's it. You notice I put everything in a stack,
I noticed that.
but I come ready.
You did. You have anything else? Sure.
I don't.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
This is Ed's
Well,
This is your last
pleasure.
time in that chair in this capacity.
Yes.
Okay. But
I
we're gonna see you.
started in here with you guys and I wanted to finish it here.
I'm glad. So when's your official last day? End of the month?
Friday.
Friday?
It's end of the month.
And the end of the week, how handy.
How handy.
We're gonna miss you around here.
Oh, yeah. But he's been smiling for the last.
I
2
noticed
years.
that. He couldn't wipe that smile off his face with a scrub brush.
But you've
Yeah.
got a new replacement for me that is gonna be outstanding. with you
Good.
guys. So-
Chris is doing really well.
Yeah,
Appreciate that. too.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sure.
Welcome. See you next go around.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, as we're moving on, we have a Wall Smith and Bateman audit presentation, a little unclear on what that is. I assume we have to adopt the audit that was.
We need to accept the audit that was presented.
Right,
It was presented the other day.
okay. And do we have somebody from Wall Smith and Bateman on that speaks to that, or we just accept it?
I believe Kim,
Yeah, so
Kim's on.
Kimberly running all
Yes.
those.
There you are, Kim. Okay,
morning.
Kim, what? Morning.
Well, we presented the numbers to you all earlier in the week, and as we discussed on Monday, we have issued an unmodified report on your December 31st, 2019 financial statements.
Right. And do you all remember all the details on that?
And I don't have any further questions, and I would move that we accept that audit.
Any questions, Gene?
I don't think so. I think I'm
Okay.
good.
You want to second that?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a motion accepted, second to accept the audit report as presented. Is there any other discussion? Call for the question. All in favor?
Right?
All right. It carries. Is that it?
I think that's it. We will submit the audit on your behalf to the Office of the State Auditor. There is a data collection form that has to be sent to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. I will reach out to whoever you think best to go ahead and get the county's contact changed. So do you have someone in place that you want to do that? We could ask Jody, since this is specifically reporting the federal dollars, or one of you all as the commissioners, or Debbie would be my recommendation.
Thank you for that.
I think Jody would be my,
I'd have to ask her if she's willing, but yeah, I don't have an issue with that. When do you have to know?
There's 90 days from the time the audit's reported to you all, so there's plenty of time. I can send an email to Jody. Is there another, should I CC one of you or all of you?
Send to all of us. Do you have our emails?
I'm
you
sure.
can just send it to BOCC at Rio Grande County, and that would get to all of us.
Okay, we will do that.
So you got that, Kimberly? You're good with that?
I am. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay,
Thanks, Kim.
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. Okay, we're down to the South Fork Marketing District. And I believe I saw Michelle Cruz on, is that correct?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Our clerk, Cindy Hill's gonna come over here so she can, you guys can talk.
Okay, thank y'all. Good morning. We're happy to be here. I'm going to speak to you today on behalf of the Greater South Fork Marketing District Formation Committee. And what we are doing is seeking to create our own marketing district in the Greater South Fork area. As noted by the San Luis Valley Development Resource Group, South Fork is very different in our industry and job mix than the rest of Rio Grande County. We're basically a resort community. We rely upon tourism. Our accommodations and food businesses account for 40% of the jobs in South Fork, as opposed to 7% in the county. And our retail trade makes up 25% of our jobs, as opposed to 8%. So the Colorado Local Marketing District Act, which is also noted as CRS 29, which I believe we've provided a copy, specifies the steps that are necessary to form our district. The purpose of this district is to promote the prosperity and the general welfare of our property owners and promote the continued vitality of all of our commercial businesses within the district. And because our district is taking in not only the town of South Fork, but also some areas outside of our town limits, we are required to seek the consent of the commissioners of Rio Grande County. This is what we've accomplished thus far. We have formed a committee that includes our lodging owners, other business owners, and some town board members. We have written our bylaws, we've written an operating plan and a marketing plan, as well as mapping the boundaries and you have copies of these. We've created a list of commercial properties taken from the county assessor's list and the proposed area, and we have received signed petitions from commercial property owners. Believe most notably, we have generated a huge interest and support from the business owners in our proposed district. We still have things to accomplish. Cindy Hill provided us with information on Monday and Tuesday, indicating that she does not believe we have 50% of our commercial property owners signing petitions. We have taken into account the information Ms. Hill presented, and we are following up on the lack of sufficiency, and we are correcting this. We are also required to hold 2 public meetings regarding this proposal. Due to the constraints of the COVID pandemic, we're working on our dates for this meeting, but intend to have this completed by August the 15th. And we will conform to the state regulations and mandates for our public meetings. A bond is also required that is sufficient to cover all of the expenses connected with the formation of the district, including election for the organization and creation of this district. And the town of South Fork has agreed to acquire this bond. Both the town of South Fork Board of Trustees and the Rio Grande County Commissioners will need to pass an ordinance or resolution declaring the district organized, describing the boundaries and the service areas of the district, and giving it the name that we've specified in our petition. This must be done if it appears that our petition has been duly signed and presented in conformity with CRS 29. So what is it we are requesting of you, our commissioners? 1, that you read and study what you've been provided in your packet of information. 2, that you recognize when our petitions are presented with at least 50% of the commercial property owner signatures. And then 3, that you pass a resolution or an ordinance recognizing the formation of the Greater South Fork Marketing District once we have turned in additional or corrected petitions and have held our public meetings. In other words, when the requirements are met. We thank you for your attention today, and we appreciate your help in the continuing formation of our district.
Thank you. Cindy, do you have anything to say? It sounds like you've given them the information they needed.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments?
I don't have any at this time.
So as I understand, and I appreciate your presentation, so we're waiting to get the petition certified after you've had a chance to take care of that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay. And then that would be, the clerk would certify that as appropriate and then bring it before the board, which time we could then set the public hearing dates.
We're planning to go ahead and hold our public hearings as we're finalizing the petition signatures.
So this is Ryan Dunn. I'm the county attorney. That's not actually how I interpret the statute. It would be this board that has to hold the public hearing.
Okay, I will be happy to get with Jean. I noted that when we were looking at the requirements, what it says is no local government shall adopt an ordinance or resolution or enter into a contract establishing a district without holding at least 2 public hearings thereon, in addition to other requirements.
Right. So this would be the local government that would be passing the ordinance or resolution, this being the.
Well, no, actually there are 2. There's the town of South Fork, because we're within their boundaries. And then because we're outside of the town limits, there's also the commissioners. So we're actually dealing with 2 governmental entities.
Yeah, no, I'm not necessarily disputing that point. What I'm suggesting, though, is that it wouldn't just be for the town of South Fork to hold the meetings. This body would actually have to have 2 public hearings before it could pass a resolution approving the same.
And again, I'll be happy to get with Jean, and I'm sure he can get with you.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, is there anything else on this? Sounds like we're work in progress and we'll continue on as we accomplish each element of this. Does that sound good to you?
Yes, sir. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in or joining in. Okay. Anything else on this before we go to the next item? Hearing nothing, on here was amending the special meeting resolution 2020-18. Ryan, you gave us a copy of a resolution that would revise that or
Yes.
rescind it.
Essentially what was proposed at a previous meeting but was not on the agenda was for partial rescission, to partially rescind the 2020-016 resolution, which allowed for telephonic and electronic participation by Board of County Commissioners members, as well as providing for weekly meetings. The proposal at the time was for the board to go back to the meeting schedule that was adopted pursuant to 2020-003, setting forth the meeting dates, which essentially provides for 2 meetings per month as opposed to weekly meetings. And so I prepared a draft resolution reducing that meeting schedule, but still allowing for telephonic or electronic participation as the board desires. Doesn't require electronic or telephonic participation, but does provide for that in the event that it's needed.
Okay, and I think the benefit of going back to the 2 meetings a month is then, because the reason we went to it was because of COVID. And at this point, we really don't have a huge lot of information, a huge number of decisions that need to be made regarding that. And I think it would be a better use of time. Instead of having a required meeting, we still have the option of having a special meeting if we need to.
James, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I think we need to spend our time wisely. I think with COVID settling down a little bit like it is, we'd be better spent working on our elements we need to take care of inside house. So if we can spend our time doing that and conduct the county business on our 2 meetings a month, I think that'd be fine.
The concern I had was right now we've had, obviously, we're going through turnover in the office personnel. We have not yet determined how we're going to fill those administrator duties pending getting somebody into that position. There's obviously confusion on who's doing what, as was evidence this morning when we had to have the county attorney set up the Zoom equipment for this meeting. So the other thing is on this, we can schedule meetings and cancel them without having to do as I understand, without the 24-hour notice if they're already scheduled. Is that correct, Ryan?
You can basically get on and say that there are no agenda items to discuss and
Cancel
close
the meeting.
or cancel the meeting, however you want to frame it.
But if we find ourselves requiring a meeting, then we have to do the 24-hour notice, which as things are somewhat disruptive right now, and it's awkward at best because the 3 commissioners are having to function in a different role. It's difficult for us to communicate and comply with the Open Meetings Act and any potential court request. So my thought would be that while we're going through this period of disruption, that we at least leave the option open of having the meeting scheduled, but we not necessarily have to meet other than twice a month and whatever work sessions we do.
Although
That's my thought on it.
I think that in practice, what ends up happening is that we have a meeting scheduled, so we stick stuff in there. And we end up with meetings where we really, it's not necessary and it's not a good use of our time. Not only that is Ryan has to prepare for meetings. He has to set aside time in his schedule. And so we're taking up a lot of extra amounts of his time.
Gene?
So if we leave it the way it's set up right now, the 3 meetings that are extra right now, we can leave them on the schedule as meetings and just cancel them if we don't have anything going on. Or can we specify that those meetings are strictly for COVID related items? And
You could specify that those additional meetings would be for COVID related items. As 2020-018 currently provides, you are required to have a weekly meeting. There's nothing that would preclude you from saying we need to have a meeting next week or we need to have a meeting on Wednesday if you were to rescind in part 2020-018. So right now you're required to have a weekly meeting by that resolution. You can always cancel that meeting. The alternative would be to not require a weekly meeting, but to hold open the option of setting a special meeting, which is always available to you as long as you have that 24-hour notice.
Ryan, Suzanne brings up the point of basically wasting your time. And I think part of that is, do you have to sit through a 2 or 3 hour briefing on something that's not related to anything you're dealing with?
I wouldn't phrase it as a waste of my time. It's definitely utilizing resources and expenses to the county that I don't think were originally budgeted. I don't think anyone at the time they were factoring in attorney's fees for fiscal year 2020 or calendar year 2020 ever anticipated COVID. So I'm mindful of that as well. The attending what essentially amounts to 2 meetings per week with the work sessions and the meetings is taking up a lot of my time, but I wouldn't describe any of that as a waste of time. There are certain things on the agenda that I absolutely would say do not require my participation. And so if you're going to continue having weekly meetings, I would suggest that maybe looking at how agendas are set so that you utilize not only my time, but others' time, I think makes some sense. So ultimately, it's the board's decision, and you can set your meetings as you think necessary. It probably does make sense if you're going to keep a mandatory weekly meeting in place to have some thoughtful consideration of whether there are items that are absolutely necessary to be on a meeting, and then cancel the meeting if necessary, or just indicate that hold the meeting and briefly indicate that there are no agenda items. Because I think, to Suzanne's point, the fact of the matter is an agenda has been available and matters have been set on an agenda, whether they're COVID related or not. And I think that practice probably has not been an efficient use of my time or other time. So that's my 2 cents.
So at this point, I'm not asking for your advice on mechanics of the meeting other than how it affects you and the notification requirements and things of that nature, the legal side of it. But I'm concerned right now, it appears until we fill that slot, we're going to have to reassign duties to other personnel or amongst ourselves like we did last year when that administrator had resigned shortly after the election. And we ended up taking portions of the county administrative function on ourselves. Commissioner Bothell basically took over the administrative position at that point, set the agendas, calendars, and things of that nature. We're seeing today, for instance, this is the first I was aware of this particular invoice coming through on the sheriff's request on this. Had not been provided to us, and I don't know who at this desk would even know where to go find it. So those types of things are coming before us right now. It would seem to me that we would be better off for management purposes and coherent function, that we have the meeting scheduled and cancel. We can cancel virtually almost no notice, or we could send out at midnight the meeting's canceled. But if we're going to have a meeting, because we have to have 24 hours minimum to deal with it, unless it's an emergency, I guess, and then we can declare an emergency meeting. But anything that we can anticipate in the normal course of this transition doesn't necessarily constitute an emergency, in my view. So I don't see the advantage. Maybe the language it says mandatory meetings. I don't remember how Alamosa set theirs up. I think they just set, we're at meeting on this date. And maybe the language is that's a mandatory meeting. Or maybe that's the net effect of it.
So our resolution has a required meeting once a week every Wednesday. Our 2020-018,
1-8. Okay.
which was a reduction in the number of meetings from twice per week, which had been for 2020-016, or 2 meetings per week.
While we were dealing with the initial stuff. Some of the things that we have to deal with that we talk about but haven't dealt with is, for instance, the CVRF funding. And some of that may have to 2 to 3 weeks between meetings, because potentially we can have 3 weeks between meetings. Maybe a little bit of a stretch.
Perhaps. Keep in mind, you're still going to have work sessions available to you, and you can have, I think, an option for a more meaningful discussion in a work session, because it allows for a more open dialogue about what you're going to do. You're not going to be taking any formal action as you're trying to work out the kinks of, say, a CDRF collaborative agreement, or how that funding can be used in terms of getting more information on what is permissible. So I'm not advocating for one position or another. I created this resolution, I drafted this resolution because it had been expressed as I understood it from Suzanne that she would be making the motion. So I prepared it so there would be some action for the board to take. Also, even if you have the meeting set, you're still going to have to post your agenda the 24 hours out. You're still going to be required to effectively give notice of the meeting, even if it's in the resolution. So those requirements are there, notwithstanding any resolutions that we pass if we intend to hold a meeting. So that's the other thing just to keep in mind as far as what action, if any, the board takes on this resolution.
Speaking of the agenda, you say we have to have the agenda posted 24 hours in advance. I know we have to have notice of the meeting published 24 hours in advance, but we've had this conversation before about how restrictive the agenda itself actually is for any of these meetings. So by virtue of having notice of the meeting to the public, and it would be best practice to have an agenda that says these are the topics that will be discussed. In the case of a moving target, it's kind of hard to anticipate what will be discussed on that day.
Right. So the statute says as much specificity as possible about the particular agenda items.
So that's pretty vague. It may not be possible, but there's no question that the meeting itself has to be posted so the public has access to it.
Right. Anytime a quorum of the local public body will be meeting to discuss public business or take formal action, you have to give notice 24 hours in advance.
So really, in my mind, what's the difference? If you have to give notice 24 hours ahead anyway, if you need to have that special meeting, it's really 6 of one, half dozen of the other. And if you have items that pop up where you feel like you need to have a meeting, then you can give notice of that special meeting, as opposed to having one required. I think it would just be better to go back to our adopted meeting schedule. And then if we have a need for a meeting, if we have enough items or items of such importance that we need to have that meeting, we can have that special meeting. And if we go to where it's on a special meeting schedule, then it doesn't necessarily have to be Wednesday either. And so if we felt like we had enough stuff that we needed to have a meeting, we could do it on 24 hours notice, but it could be on Tuesday or whatever other day would suit as well. So I would move that we go back to our regular meeting schedule.
Do you move the adoption of?
The adoption of the
Draft resolution?
Yes.
It's a draft resolution.
It's a draft resolution adopting second revision of temporary meeting rules and procedures concerning telephonic or electronic participation.
I think that, I think I'll put a second on it, but I want to put a little caveat on it. I don't want this to get to where, because we're going to go back to the 2 meetings, we're going to get away from doing what we need to do inside here while we're doing this. Strength, you made that statement about us having to take on some other roles. I want to make sure we understand that that's still going to be there, regardless of the number of meetings they have on the calendar. So
does that resolution address that?
Well, I don't think there's anything within the resolution that would prohibit the board from still setting meetings and dealing with issues as they arise or on an as-needed basis, just because you're doing away with a requirement to have a weekly meeting. If that answers your question.
Well, and I think too is if we're having to take on additional tasks, we need the time to do it instead of sitting in a meeting talking about it, that we can actually have time to do it.
I suspect, and I don't want to get into speculative details here, but it's obvious to everybody that our county administrator has resigned and we don't have a county administrator right now. We've heard deep expressions from departments and citizens and electeds about maintaining, for lack of a better term, the continuity of the administration here. Right now, we're getting, in my view, the cart before the horse. It would be better to determine what it is we're going to need to do throughout this process while we find the person to take that position, whether we do temporary or do a permanent hire, what have you. And that while we're dividing these duties up, I'm presuming what would have been normal day-to-day communication between commissioners and the administrator are now going to fall into the Open Meetings Act. And while we can't give notice of everything that's going to be what would be a normal conversation about setting up an agenda, for instance, potentially that's going to be a 2-commissioner meeting just to set the agenda right now, depending on how we divvy up the duties. Chairman and another commissioner's functioning in that role. And until we identify that, I think it would be premature to make any decision on our regular meeting schedule, since we already have the most flexible option we have right now is to just cancel meetings in terms of notification requirements. Is that going to change how we handle setting the schedule? It might, because maybe on that Wednesday or whatever, when we sit down and talk about it, we do. And it's going to be, our attorney's going to have to give us advice on how we handle those procedures where we comply with the Open Meetings Act.
What does the posting look like whenever you cancel a meeting? If you decide on 24 hours ahead, you still have to post that meeting as being canceled, or how does that work?
I don't think you have to post the meeting as being canceled. The other way other counties handle it, because I think the statute is silent on canceling the meeting, as far as I'm aware, but the only way that I know that counties handle it is that a representative, so I know, I don't know if that's every time they cancel a meeting, but at times the Alamosa County Attorney has basically joined the call. I don't know if they do theirs by Zoom or by phone. I was thinking by phone. And he logs in and just says there are no agenda items for today. We're canceling the meeting. I don't think there is prior notice that has to be posted of a canceled meeting. You certainly could have the flexibility of posting that on your website, and just not posting an agenda in the designated place in front of the courthouse. If you wanted to say, you know, this meeting was previously on the calendar for the county commissioners, and now it's not going to be held, then you could certainly indicate that somehow if somebody has that time and that access.
And if you have a resolution that says you have a required meeting every Wednesday, do you have to post a blank agenda
No,
24 hours ahead?
no.
Or you just don't post an agenda?
You wouldn't post your agenda if you have no items to discuss, and then at that point in time, you wouldn't really be taking action. And you get on there and you say, there are no agenda items, we're taking no action.
But if I heard you correctly, the requirement to post the items has, like, to the best of ability, that type of language.
As much specificity as possible.
Okay, so there may be no specificity potentially, but that the public would still be there for whatever conversation and decisions the commission make.
Correct.
Regardless.
Right.
And we just may not know that we're going to be talking about some personnel issue that's not an executive session personnel issue. Maybe, for instance, job descriptions of a position or those types of things, which is something we're going to be faced with in the immediate future within the next 7 days, certainly. And I realize some of that could be covered in a work session, but as I understand, we don't have a provision or a resolution setting work sessions on a weekly basis, do we?
Don't have a resolution setting work sessions. You've been essentially just posting notice of that, I think, on a Friday before
a meeting on Monday.
And I'm trying to pull up the resolution, the 2020-18, to see if it specifies weekly meetings or if it gives any indication that it would be every Wednesday. Because I'm not sure that the current resolution as written actually would put people on notice. The 2020-03 specifies the exact meeting dates. Yeah, and those are what is highlighted on the calendar behind me. At one point, I think 2020-16 indicated that there would be meetings every Monday and Wednesday, and I'm just looking for, I think I've got it right here, to see if it indicates what day of the week that would be held. So it says, now therefore be it resolved that for as long as these temporary rules remain in effect, and I'm referring to 2020-18, the BOCC will meet at least once weekly each Wednesday to review and take action on any issues, including but not necessarily limited to the COVID-19 outbreak and with a local disaster emergency declaration. And then it goes on from there. And that was the resolution approved on May 13th, 2020.
From my personal perspective, I don't like having lots of meetings. Obviously, they're taking up a lot of time. They're taking up a lot of the attorney's time and others. And it was mentioned that the administrators haven't spent an awful lot of time preparing for these meetings. And I don't deny any of that or don't discount it. I am concerned that over the next probably 2 weeks, that we're going to have several issues facing us that we need to be able to meet and discuss. I don't know, Ryan, from your outsider's perspective, from your just detached perspective, what do you think? As you understand what we're going to have to go through the personnel side and everything, what would your best advice be on how we do that?
Well, some of those decisions that you have to make are going to fall under the requirement of day-to-day oversight over specific personnel, which doesn't require notice under the statute. Some of the decisions that you have to make may not formally constitute either public business or formal action of the board. It might just be kind of just figuring out the inner workings of the county. So some of those things can be held without actually some of those discussions legally can be held without posting notice. I would discourage the board from having meetings of 2 or more commissioners just to avoid the appearance of impropriety. And so to the extent that those discussions can be held in work sessions, I think that's a good idea. But I also know that sometimes those discussions lend themselves to situations where the board will need to take action, and you're going to want to have probably the flexibility of at least being able to call a meeting when necessary. Now, then I guess the situation that you'll have to look at is whether it can wait 24 hours before you can have that meeting, or if it's something that needs to be done right then. But typically, if you're going to be having those discussions on a Monday, in a Monday work session, you're going to wait until your Wednesday meeting anyway. So I'm not seeing that a resolution, and this resolution as drafted, would really tie your hands, but it may in effect not reduce the number of meetings either, given the current situation.
So if I'm trying to process this, we don't have a resolution setting work sessions every Monday. We just have a practice.
You have a practice and you're posting, yeah.
And we're posting, but it's not codified in the resolution.
No.
So if we were to say we're going to continue having work sessions, at that, say something came up in a work session that was going to require action in a week where a meeting wasn't scheduled, we could easily post, if we got it done in a timely fashion, on a Monday and have a special meeting on a Tuesday of the board where we could take action.
Correct.
That would comply with the statute. And or we could set it for any other day of the week, depending on what we were doing. In which case, then we're not just planning for a meeting a regular board meeting every week where we take action, but have the opportunity to have the discussion in an open work session. If we're in a work session, we can't go into executive session from a work session, can we?
No, an executive session there are some exceptions in the statute. Again, the day-to-day oversight and some of those that don't necessarily require notice and wouldn't be an executive session per se, but the executive session would typically be moved for in the context of an open meeting.
So we have to go to an open meeting, which would have to be 24 hours or whatever. And then from there, we could go to the executive session to discuss those items that are
correct
covered under that. So I'm not opposed to the resolution person. I mean, I don't have, other than my questions that I would like to have answered, I am trying to think through what the process is going to be. We had an example today of confusion over who's responsible for what, because commissioners hadn't had a chance to sit down ahead of time and say, who's trained to set up the OWL system for Zoom, for instance. That's just one thing. But we've got probably a laundry list of unanswered questions right now. And while we've talked to some of the staff, and some of us have talked to some of the staff, some of us probably talked to all the staff, I don't know. We've got some stuff we got to figure out probably within the next 24 hours, just for basic minimum function of the county. And I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate that in this process. But we don't even have enough information right now because this resignation took place allegedly 2 days ago, but that individual came in yesterday and did some work for the county. But now is no longer here. And so we're without an administrator, and we have not collectively or assigned individually, somebody to go out there and divvy up duties in the office. I am concerned about that. And I'm hearing now that there are street rumors out there. I haven't heard them direct. Yeah, street rumors coming back that there is from somewhere gross misinformation being disseminated out there. I don't know where it's coming from. I'm concerned about it because some of it includes names of people who are not involved in this. And that could be problematic going forward. People who don't work for the county. And so, that being said, we need to have time to sit down and figure out what we're going to do as the Board of Commissioners going forward. We need to make that decision, at least set the process in motion now. I mean, like today. Otherwise, we will be waiting until the next work session or whatever, or a special meeting. But we have no way now to effectively accomplish this. Unless you have advice on how to do it, the day-to-day business of the county kind of thing.
I think you're gonna have to decide. I, again, would reiterate that I'm not sure that those discussions all need to be held in a public meeting. I think if that falls under the day-to-day oversight of the property and personnel of under the supervision of the Board of County Commissioners, excuse me, it's not required that that be in a public meeting. It's not required that notice of that be posted. I think we probably should have a discussion as to how you want to accomplish those goals and divvy up those tasks to figure out how you're going to do that. As to how that relates to the draft resolution, I'm not sure that those discussions require a weekly public meeting. That's the only advice that I could offer there.
So, Suzanne, you made a motion that we accept the draft resolution modifying our meeting schedule. Gene, you seconded it with conditions, so it's kind of not the same motion exactly. We need to line those up.
Okay. I'll rescind my second to restate it as that I make a motion second to the motion that Suzanne made to go back to our regular meeting schedule with the knowledge now that we have what we have from our attorney. So,
okay. Is there any other discussion on it? If not, I'll call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right. Now we have another item here. Dixie's request for time off to use up accrued comp time and sick leave that she's going to lose. The only reason I see it before us right now is we don't have an administrator to approve it as a supervisor. It's not on here. It was an email that came in this morning.
Since it's a personnel matter, do we want to address that in an executive session as opposed to an open meeting?
I don't know. In the past, we've approved vacations and day off requests outside of that.
Okay. I think I would feel more comfortable if in discussing Dixie's personal request that be done in a personnel. And then she has an option for an open meeting, but I don't want to necessarily force her into an open meeting. She doesn't want that.
I'm not quite sure. She sent us an email advising us of a request.
Okay.
So, but we can move that to executive session, but we can't take any action on it except in open session. I don't know what we're going to discuss in executive session on that.
I don't know. I didn't see the email, so I don't know what there is to discuss. My hands are a little bit tied in advising you on that, but as a personnel matter, my preference would be that the board discuss those things in executive session.
Okay.
Take whatever action.
For that, since we're acting, although we've not adopted any formal policy on how we're handling the normal day-to-day administrative duties, in theory, we could just handle it as administrator would, which would not even come before the board.
Right.
In which case, it's not covered under any of these things.
Right.
So how do we function in that role?
If we can have an executive session so that I can understand specifically what the request is, then I can advise you there. I would say that approving if personnel is answering directly to the board and is being supervised by the board, in making a decision with respect to their day-to-day oversight, you won't need to handle that in a public meeting or take action. I'm not sure it should be an agenda item. But again, I don't know the specific request other than what you
The
generally.
only
described.
reason agenda item is none of us at this point has the designated authority to authorize that, which as I understand, the board can, under our governance laws and under statute, assign specific roles and oversight and supervisory capacity to the individual board members. I believe that's done by resolution, but I don't know.
Right, so you would want to take action by motion, preferably by resolution, to designate who, if anybody, would be responsible for that particular decision-making function. You could leave it to the board itself for you all to have discussions about how you want to handle those things. And I don't think that would be something that would require public meeting. You haven't had that discussion. I think that's a discussion that should be held in an executive session as to how you want to handle those things.
So the discussion about assignment of duties, identifying the duties and assigning responsibility should happen in the executive session.
Right, and then
And
whatever
until
decision,
those duties are assigned to answer a personnel issue like the one that we just brought up, that decision today should be made in the executive session also, collectively by the
should
board.
be, that issue should be discussed in the executive session. The decision then should be made after the
As
fact.
we come out of it. What about the decision to assign duties? That will have to be made also in an open meeting.
The decision itself, yes. But I think that might be something where we discuss that and I offer advice to the board in a privileged session.
Not even
An
executive,
attorney,
or
yeah,
not even
right.
a normal
Right,
executive
I
session.
think that's where I think the board would benefit from receiving legal advice on as to how to divvy up those responsibilities. But I don't necessarily think that that's a discussion you want to have in a public meeting. The decision, yes. The discussion, no. The decision, yes. The discussion, no.
Okay. All right, so we'll defer that. The next item on here is the HCC coordinator contract, which we have a copy of. And it requires our approval and signature, as I understand. I don't know. Tony, you're on. Do you have any comments on this?
No, just that I put in the updates that Ryan suggested, and you'll notice that the amount is the full amount of travel, supplies, and salary for Cynthia, and that was the recommendation from the coalition.
Okay, do you have any position on this?
I'd recommend that you approve that contract at that amount.
Okay, and where does the original requiring signatures, where is that sitting right now, physically?
So it could be printed off of that email that I sent you, or I can bring one in on Monday.
Do it on Monday, you say? Or?
Yeah, we could do that if you want to sign the paper copy, or I can do an electronic signature if that would be your preference.
Well, first we have to approve it and then we can figure out how to sign it. How's that?
Sure.
But your recommendation is that we approve it as presented.
It is, yes.
Thank you.
And I would make that motion.
We have a motion. Suzanne Bothell made the motion. Commissioner Glover.
Second.
Commissioner Glover seconded. Any other discussion on it? Then call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye and aye. Okay, motion carries. Tony, for your purposes, I have to sign that as chairman, do I not?
You do, yes.
Signature. You're authorized to use my electronic signature on that document, so you can get this done and out. Is that fair enough?
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Are you on vacation still?
Kinda, mostly.
Except for this kind of stuff.
Well, that's what I'm curious. I haven't
Yeah,
wanted to
if I'm
bother you
needed
because
for
you're on
something,
vacation. So, yeah, so I
I
haven't
let
called.
everybody know.
Okay. All right, fair enough. All right, that takes care. Do you have anything else for public health, Tony, before we go on?
There's nothing urgent right now to share.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to unfinished business, we had, I can't even see mine. Oh, this is so we acknowledge it and don't forget it. Baxter Mountain,
Baxter Hill.
near Baxter Hill. Has anything happened on your end on that, or was there anything waiting to happen on your end?
There shouldn't be anything on my end. My role was to write a letter to BLM to let them know that they were working on a process for, that they being the board, working on a process for removal. That responsibility had been delegated to the administrator to either put it out for bid or come up with some plan for removal of the equipment from Baxter Hill. I'm just assuming that nothing has happened since last Wednesday, given everything else that has transpired, but there's really nothing for me to do at this point in time.
Okay. And we don't have any structure going forward right now to deal with that at this point.
Right.
In terms of going out to bid or further conversation on that. Okay. Gene, you referenced then, well, let me back up. Baxter Hill. We want to set that aside until we figure out who's doing what in terms of the board.
Yeah, I think that's one of those ones we want to put aside because I think we can figure out where to put that as far as who to spearhead it or whatever. So.
Okay. And maybe one of those things you just leave set aside till we have an administrator. Or
the only thing to keep in mind is that they've stopped billing right now through September 2020. And so I think through the end of September. So it'd be one of those things to set aside, but not completely forget
Right.
between now and then.
And I'm presuming that we had, when we adopted the budget last year, although I don't know specifically, that we budgeted for the whole year for Baxter Hill lease payments, but I don't know.
Right,
And I don't remember what the amount is, but I think it's a small enough amount. We're not gonna
It's not going to break.
divide it up and say we're only gonna budget for a portion of the year.
Right. So, Gene, you asked that we add the Conservation Trust Fund for Sky High. What you,
We had approved this quite some time back, and then with COVID and everything else going on, we kind of set it aside. I've been recently in contact with them, and they're asking to go ahead and release the conservation trust funds to the city of Monte Vista under the statutes and everything we have in our letters that have been out since February. So I would like to, we don't need to do a motion or anything, so we just need to make a decision amongst us to go ahead and honor what we said we were going to do and go ahead and present the money to them.
as a question I had, I have two. One was, of course, we're in August, and Forrest said it wouldn't be required until August. But the other was that they provided evidence that they had in fact received the grants, and that we would provide that $150,000 as a portion of the match. But Ryan, is that correct that that it was conditioned upon?
Correct. I sent a letter dated February 10th, 2020 to Forrest Newberg. That letter basically indicated that this was a conditional commitment contemplating revenue sharing for conservation trust funds between Rio Grande County and the city of Monte Vista. The county contemplated sending $150,000 in revenue sharing to the city upon meeting a number of conditions, one being that it be used only for the Sky High Park Regional Event Center project, that all of these expenditures would comport with the requirements of the Department of Local Affairs, Division of Local Government, and that these funds were intended as matching funds, and so we would be provided with some proof that they received the grants from, I don't remember if it was the Gates Foundation or one.
I
of
think
the
it was
other.
kind of, it wasn't stipulated. It was kind of, they were looking at several.
I had back, I want to say May, we did receive an invoice from that was prepared and sent by Carla Schreiber on behalf of Friends of Sky High, and then was for payment to be sent to the city of Monte Vista. I wasn't comfortable with the way that invoice was prepared because I don't think we should be paying from an invoice anyway. I think because it's a revenue sharing agreement, we would send this with as revenue sharing as opposed to an invoice. But I also hadn't received anything, and I inquired back in May or whenever that invoice came through, what, if any, verification Friends of Sky High had or the city of Monte Vista had as to so that we could provide these matching funds. So that's kind of, from my perspective, the only missing piece right now is that grant approval.
And I would like to specify that we did not agree to give them money. We agreed to transfer Conservation Trust funds to the city of Monte Vista.
Well,
Account.
I agree with that, and that's exactly what it says on here. So maybe I misspoke on that part, but the fact is we agreed to back some time ago, and if we're missing something here, I wasn't aware that we still was waiting for that to come in.
I did, just because I ran into her a few weeks ago. Kathy Woods, that's her name, right? I did run into her, and I just kind of put the bug in her ear. She mentioned it, and I mentioned that we hadn't received anything. So I think, as far as I see it, that's the only thing holding up that transfer of conservation funds. So they have something showing that they've received that grant approval from whatever grants they were applying for. I said Gates Foundation. I'm not even sure that's correct.
I think that was one of the ones they were proposing.
It was several.
For our purposes, it probably doesn't matter because we didn't specify. All we said that they represented to us that this money would help them make their match.
I would agree. It
And
doesn't
our
matter
conditions
where
were, you get commitment to the grant, we'll commit to our match and transfer the funds. The city manager in Monte Vista had indicated that the funds would not be required until late summer, August, I think is what it was. That's what they said. So that's next steps is how do we communicate? Like, guys, show us the grant or the commitment or whatever. What do we do?
Gene, I don't know if you have any insight into what grants they've received, or I don't know that Kathy was the best person. I'm happy to reach out to Carla myself and try to figure out what grants, or if one of you want to reach out. I don't know who.
Well, just for the record, I would rather you reach out.
Okay.
And that way we know that it's being handled by somebody that doesn't have a one-sided.
Okay. Do you know who was in charge of that grant process, or I guess I could initially reach out to Forrest.
Time thing.
I'm almost thinking that Forrest should be
Forrest might be the most
the
logical answer.
central location.
It's a city project. Friends of Sky High have facilitated along with other entities.
Right.
But it'll be the city of Monte Vista that owns the property. They are the ones that took out the lease purchase agreement to buy the building.
And who would be accepting the conservation trust fund. So I can reach out to Forrest and find out if he can get me that grant information, and I'm sure he can reach out to whomever at Friends of Sky High was handling the grants.
Sure.
Okay. That I can do.
But he could be our single point of contact at this point.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. So I guess, Gene, is it okay we defer this until Ryan gets that cleared up?
Don't have any choices, don't look like, so.
Well, I don't know. You can make a motion.
No. I'm not gonna argue this no more. So
Is there anything else under unfinished business? I've got another one, and maybe this is what we talk about in executive session. I don't know, because it gets in that gray area. I've seen nothing other than a few, not personal items, county items, in terms of the administrator list of things to do, things that are required, things that are unfinished.
We do have the job description.
We have a job description, which we need to have that conversation also. But we don't have it in front of us right now. But we don't have that. We don't know what's on our desk or what was laying out there. For instance, the sheriff's request. The Hangar 28 thing at the airport. Who knows? There's probably a dozen items because we weren't briefed on all of those items, and she didn't provide me or the board as the board any list. She may have, I don't know, she gave you a list or not, Suzanne. But Jeannie, have you seen anything or talked to anybody?
I haven't.
Nor have I. So I don't know.
I'm not sure if that was a question for me.
Look, yeah. It's, how far do we go into this in open meeting? How far do we go into an executive session?
I think we need to have an executive session where we can discuss and I can provide advice to the board on what direction to proceed with respect to personnel matters, with respect to administrative matters, and try to figure out how it might even be possible to divvy up these responsibilities in the interim. So I don't think that there's anything at this point in time for you all to discuss as on the record, as there are other conversations that need to be held before you can make a decision.
So we'll hold that for a second then, because the other is commissioners update and administrative items. Are there any administrative or commissioner updates? Anything?
I don't have anything.
Suzanne?
No, I hadn't had time to attend my meetings.
Okay. I have something on the railroad, and Ryan, this, I've gotten 2 calls yesterday. One was their stalking horse bidder feels that the trustee is setting opening bid price beyond the value of the railroad. The trustee allegedly is saying that he has interest in that, but the stalking horse bidder is backing out of that. But what is significant as it affects the county is there's been no communication between the trustee and the counties about the public interest on this. The trustees allege that he has buyers interested, but we have no idea if they're buyers that want to run a railroad or just use it for rail car storage, which is potential. Okay. The other call was from a consultant who obviously is angling for a gig, a job, offering his services to counties collectively. And I said, you picked a really bad time to talk about that, because I said, we've got new commissioners coming in, things are in a state of flux. But he concurred that the railroad, from an operating standpoint and a diligent buyer, would not pay the asking price, particularly given that it's only the railroad itself. It's not any rolling stock or any other motive assets. It's just the real estate and shops and things of that nature. But that storage is a real possibility because there is a glut of rail cars right now. And for the next 2 to 5 years, it'll probably remain a glut. And he gave me all the railroad consultants' reasons for the glut and what it would mean. But my question to him was, at the trustee's asking price or starting price, could a potential buyer come in, buy this railroad, and just use it for storage? We understand that Levita's is not adequate for that, but we've got the run down to Antonito, and we've got everything from South Fork to Fort Garland and past Fort Garland, actually, until you start at the grade. And would that provide enough capital for somebody to be tempted to just buy it and roll cars in here and let it sit? In which case, we're not getting the public interest representative, which is keeping the railroad operating. And he says, well, you guys need counsel on this, representing us. As I understand right now, we're in movements on the bankruptcy petitioner side, but have heard nothing from either the bankruptcy attorney nor the trustee, or even the outcome of that, if they even had a hearing. I don't know what's
Did
happening.
they file the motion?
Well, they were going to, but I don't know dates and times.
So I knew that they wanted to be able to file the motion by Friday. I hadn't actually seen the filed.
Last Friday or this Friday?
Last Friday.
Okay.
That is what the deadline that he tentatively imposed for filing that motion, but I hadn't heard any update from. I can follow up with Mike and see if it actually got filed. I honestly haven't had the time to focus on anything railroad related because of the other.
No,
matters
and
in the
I
county.
wouldn't ask you to. I just
So,
wanted to clarify.
I don't know what the status is. I think that's where the perceived benefit of the creditors committee,
If we get it.
if you get it. If you don't get it, then what you'll probably want is, and we've talked about it in the past, is either sharing responsibilities of the county attorneys, or for the counties to engage counsel privately to go in there and represent the interest in the bankruptcy, to let the bankruptcy judge know that the proposed sale by the bankruptcy trustee would not represent the public interest, that would result in stacking of cars on railways. And
Potentially.
yeah. And that if that happens, that's contrary to interest. And of course, we all want to see the taxes that are owed paid to the counties, but I don't think really anyone wants to just see rail cars, miles and miles of rail cars, because we already have an issue with that. So,
Well, if I may, if you'll indulge me just a bit on this, the minimum stalking horse bid is $15 million. The actual value to a reasonable buyer under normal circumstances would probably be between 8 and 10 million. Okay. I don't know why the 15 million price was set, and it does include the Mount Hood Railroad, which is a nominal $800,000 railroad. Okay. But if you got down to that $8 to $10 million, now the stalking horse bidder is probably interested going forward. And that particular bidder is obviously a railroad operator, not a railroad storage car operator, but anybody can be a railroad storage operation. But I could see where somebody would come in, pay the price, and part of it is based on Mr. Ellis's liabilities, or at least IPH's or Senator's Grand, is trying to hit something there for creditors, which may, as you have said, may or may not line up with our interest. Definitely from the public interest side, I see us at risk. So let's say somebody came in at an $8 to $10 million bid, got the railroad, and they turn this all into rail car storage, and I estimate that they could probably generate, and my number was confirmed verbally, about $5 to $6 million a year. So would you invest $8 to $10 million knowing that you could make $5 to $6 million a year over the next 8 years and still on railroad? And they could make that kind of money just storing cars, which does not work for the county as I understand. So I'm concerned about us having at least a good sense of what's going on with the attorney and the creditors committee thing. And I'm hearing constant complaints that the trustee is kind of operating on his own. He's not communicating very well with anybody, not cooperating from the creditor side. He's doing lots of stuff with potential buyers and things of that nature. But in the meantime, they're parting out parts of the Iowa Pacific Empire, some of which are assets which were transferred from the SLRG to the subsidiaries of other entities and are now being sold off to cover the whole entity's debt. And we have no window into that right now. And no input. It's just information, guys. I'm not asking for any kind of anything. That's it. That's as far as I look.
yeah, well, I think as far as what I can offer is, and I'll follow up with Mike and see where the creditors committee, if that's going anywhere on the bankruptcy side, if it's even been set for a hearing. And then if not, and doesn't look like it's going to get anywhere and our interests aren't going to be protected, we'll need to bring that back to the board and potentially to your SLV county commissioners meeting for maybe a collaborative decision on how to represent that local public interest so that you still have operations of a railroad and freight can move and farmers can get their fertilizer and move their potatoes and whatever.
Well, it doesn't make much sense to fight for a railroad that's going to store cars on when fight to start with was to keep a railroad that was operational, to help the farmers and all the ag businesses as a whole. I mean, that,
You might get your taxes that are owed paid.
Yeah.
But I think as counties, we have a larger interest in, not that the $600,000 that is owed to Rio Grande County is not significant, because it is, but making sure that the freight lines that our farmers depend upon are still able to function. I think that's the overriding concern, as I understand it.
And my concern too is we found out in past emails that there was a plan by the state to turn it into a bike trail, to connect between the Continental Divide Trail, which is to our west, and I think it's called maybe the Front Range Trail. That's,
So we would be talking
Walsenburg.
basically from Creed to Walsenburg?
and basically whenever the Creed Railroad sale did not happen, then that kind of put that plan to rest. But I'm kind of concerned that if something happens on this, that it would open that back up.
I don't want to take a lot of people's time speculating right now, but those are real and genuine concerns. And we do know that proposals have been made out there, and that the governor's office, this was under Governor Hickenlooper at the time, I believe, was actively working with the interest group in the valley to get this whole section turned into a trail and abandon the railroad totally. Okay. That's discomforting, to say the least. But I also know that another potential buyer that came to me, and we met in here as a matter of fact, and he was discussing his plan. And all these people are looking for counties to give them some help in some form, whether it's not abating the taxes, but maybe deferring them or something like that. No discussions have gone beyond that. But he sat there looking for help, financial help, and his goal was to buy everything from Creed to Walsenburg. And I brought up well, I don't believe you can store cars on that Creed line effectively because of grading curves and some other issues, the condition of the track. And he said he already has that covered. And yeah, that's exactly what he would be doing up there, is storing cars, at least from Creed down as far as cars are stored now. And he had a plan which he would not share with me. But I could see, if you can make, this railroad was making $2.5 million a year storing cars between basically Monty and South Fork. Those are the historical numbers on that. And it cost them virtually nothing to do that. If they moved a car for somebody, they got paid for it. So it wasn't like they were out any money. They got reimbursed all of their expenses on handling these cars here. And so that's $2.5 million a year with no basic operating cost on the gross revenue, 50% of the gross. And imagine if you extended that from whatever direction all the way down, suddenly this railroad looks kind of lucrative just to park cars on it, which would be a problem. I think for the county, certainly for the residents who don't want to stare at cars. And so I think it's something we need to have that information. And I'm just telling you what I've heard. The one stalking horse bidder is a guy named Al Harper. He owns a Durango, Silverton, and two other railroads and some other things. He's the one that called me yesterday and said he's out.
Can you explain the term stalking horse bidder?
The leading bid. So I want somebody to prime the pump. And so will you prime the pump for me? I mean, okay, yep, I'm in. And that sets the floor. It's kind of like at the auction when somebody would open the bid. Johnny Meloff at the sale would open the bid. That would be considered a stalking horse bid. Okay. I had to ask that question too, because it sounded a little weird, because stalking horse is usually somebody that doesn't sound good. So that's that. Now, Ryan, in terms of executive session and all that, what do we logistically, how do we do this?
So I think that you have two issues. I think you have one issue regarding a leave request that the board, my advice would be for the board to the chair to entertain a motion to go into executive session to deal with personnel matters pursuant to Title 24, Article 6, 4024B, 4F. And then after that, I think there is a need to have a discussion with the board regarding legal advice on matters that are currently before the board pursuant to 24-6-4024B.
Okay.
And I would make that motion.
Second motion, second, that we adjourn and go into executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Ryan, can you take care of us